Hi everybody, my name's Chauncey. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not very good with microphones. I've been in the field, my best estimate is 41 years now. The story of how I got into it's very simple. I got drafted into the Army in 1972, went to the Army Human Engineering Lab and started my career in human factors and did some very early usability testing on Army tanks and other large devices. So that's how I got started. I'm currently a UX architect at Autodesk and also an adjunct professor at Bentley. Been there in some capacity since 1994. I'm really old and I think the field is still a lot of fun. So that's enough for me.
Hi, my name is Sen. Oh, it's not very reliable, but I'll still really.
Is it on?
Hello. All right, here it is. So my name is Sen, and I'm actually the almost exact opposite. I've only been in design for about 3 years. I graduated 3 years ago. Got into UX and usability through the Fresh Till Soil apprenticeship program, and today I lead design at a company called Panjiva. It's like 3 blocks away, and I walk maybe 5 minutes to get here.
I'm Aster Chow, and I actually was a student of Chauncey's at Bentley, but the way I got into UX design was various different ways, through fine arts, through visual design, communication design, and then I went to Bentley, and now I work at Blackboard. I'm excited to be here.
Hi, my name is Corey. Is this working?
That was wrong.
No. Okay.
Here, give me that one.
All right. This will be the talking stick. So my name is Corey Costantino, and I graduated from Wentworth here in Boston with an industrial design degree in 1999. And I've been working, doing industrial design or graphic design consulting or what we call user experience design since then. So I've gotten to work in a lot of different industries and see a lot of different types of products. And now I'm working for a company called UL, which is Underwriter Laboratory. And you might know Wickland Research and Design, which was acquired by UL. So we're essentially doing human factors and user experience design now at this larger company.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Smith. I am one of the founders of a company called American Graphics Institute, and we do a lot of training, but we also do a lot of consulting. And my entry into UX, well, first of all, my background is as a communication design person. I have an undergraduate in communication design or graphic arts, and then got involved in UX probably about the same time as the term was coined in the late 1990s. And my strength is integrating design with UX. I worked really closely with Microsoft before Windows 8, but don't blame me for what it looks like, okay? But it was great because I got involved in their testing and how things worked, and then I was also shipped all around the world to Japan and Australia and New Zealand to teach developers how to design, because the biggest fear was that developers were going to make really bad, ugly applications, and so they wanted a designer involved. And so I spent several years doing that, and now I work with a lot of companies around the world, helping them and consulting with them to create designs for iPad, websites, whatever platform. It's a lot of fun, a lot of different kinds of industries I get to touch.
That hand went up first.
So I have experience as a product manager and customer research on the marketing side of things. I have experience in product management and customer research from the marketing side of things, and worked closely with usability and UX people on voice services and telecommunications. I'm wondering if you can provide some advice on transitioning more to web applications and how to get more experience in that area. Particularly interested in wireframing, that sort of thing.
Are you looking and asking me? Or anybody?
Anyone.
Okay, good.
Did you have a...
Well, you're basically saying you need to take something from mobile to web?
Well, interested in learning. I've actually more recently been in more of a research role that is keeping me away from that experience. So I'm getting up to speed on both web and mobile techniques, away from just purely voice services.
So you're
More
saying,
visual, from voice services to,
but you're saying, are you asking what is the best way that we think you should wireframe or take
well,
something
connect.
to?
yeah,
Connect-
connect closer to the UX side of things, from
Okay.
a product management
I mean, the simplest, easiest answer, and of course anybody can jump in. I mean, when we're doing this, UX is everything to design, and the research and everything leads to the design and the UI. You can't do anything without that. And so when we're actually building things, we start with the simplest structure of trying to find out what's important. It doesn't matter what platform it's on. I always try to explain to people whether it's a website or mobile app or tablet app or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You're just trying to focus on the scenarios and how people are going to use things and the features that they need. But when we're actually creating wireframes, we will do a lot of post-its, a lot of features, a lot of moving them around. Then we do a lot of sketching. We do sketching. We don't touch the tools. I tell people, I've written probably over 22 books on Photoshop and Illustrator, but I will not let anyone touch Photoshop or Illustrator until they have sketched, and really thought out everything. And then we use a product called Balsamic Mockups because it's so incredibly easy and so fast, and just rapidly coming up with the best solution so that you can test before you invest time. That's my answer.
Sure, other people have better ones.
Yeah, just to add on to that.
Yeah. Set the back.
Sorry, maybe I just like break them as I touch them. So I would definitely add on to that probably the most important thing to me as a designer and as a UX professional is the ability to work really fast and visually. Probably it takes a really long time for certain ideas and things to be tested out, so the quicker you can do it, the better. So it doesn't matter what tool, like what you have, you figure out something, whip it out fast and show it to people and get feedback. I think that's probably the best thing you do for yourself as you're working out ideas. And a lot of times, there's some really great ideas that feel really good in your head, but as soon as you put them on paper and have people go through it, it's just like it falls apart. And you really need that rigorous testing and drawing it out. And it doesn't even need to look that good. You can just sketch a couple of things out, kind of hook them together and show them to people. And there are a lot of good tools out there that you can do it. There's Azure, you can use Sketch, you can just even take pictures of your sketchbook. There's a lot of different tools.
Are you looking to do this within the work that you're doing now, or are you looking to sort of transition into kind of a field where you're doing more visual design, and that's kind of what you'd like to spend your time doing?
yeah, I don't specifically, probably won't be doing the design myself, but want to get a better understanding of the field and work closer with design professionals.
Within your current role?
With any, well, I'm currently looking for work,
Yeah.
but in a probably product management or product owner role.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, a lot of when I work with clients and they have their marketing, people from the marketing side come in, you always gain a really interesting perspective. Some people are good, some people aren't so good, and they don't know what they're doing. But and they sort of offer these kind of offhanded, comments about what they think looks nice or what they think the customer wants, and it's really an uneducated opinion. On the other hand, there's people who are really good, and in marketing, people can offer a lot of really great insights about what's going on with the customer, what the product's doing. So I think, anywhere where you can find projects or look at people's portfolios or look online for case studies of projects where, they were built on like marketing data or things that you kind of have a really good handle of. And then just see like how those conversations, how those products evolved. I mean, I think if you're looking to become more of a visual designer yourself, then I think the advice everyone's giving you of, actually sketching things out, developing some little projects in a portfolio or that sort of thing is really what you have to do. But
So I've heard some really good things. I think somebody mentioned a sketchbook. So keeping a design notebook and just doing that. Are you nervous about sketching, by the way?
No?
Anybody else nervous about sketching in here? Oh, good, okay, nobody's nervous, great, okay, Vlad is, okay. So that's a good one. The other is to have some basic, grounding in design principles. There's a nice little book out, 125 Universal Principles or something of design. And I think it's really important to not just say, I like it, I don't like it, but, this violates the Gestalt principle of closure, and, well, maybe in a better language to your clients, but, so I think those are a couple more things that I would work on. The other is sort of, I think your marketing background and methods, they are very complementary to the work we do. I mean, I do satisfaction surveys and detailed research. Start reading up and developing some background in methods, and add a couple methods every year. So, yeah, and don't be a methodology. What is it? Don't engage in methodolatry, and say something like contextual inquiry is the only method, or something, or any other method. Didn't mean to pick on CI, but so you want to build your repertoire of methods, and not claim that you know the best practice. I think that came up. I heard something about that earlier as well. So. Yeah.
Does this work? Okay. So just as Chauncey said, having the marketing background absolutely, I think, is incredibly helpful. I actually came from visual design and marketing myself, and then went to consulting, and now this is the first time that I've actually been an internal designer. And it's interesting because coming from a marketing agency where we constantly were working with marketing, with all of our research, it was very complementary. Different organizations have different structures, and their marketing group might be very different than their product team. So recently, being pretty new to the internal UX design, product design team, I've been sort of reaching out to the marketing team, just seeing what they're up to, so that we're sort of aligning the research that we're doing, because a lot of it sort of overlaps. And another thing that I've seen really as a trend in UX departments is sort of looking more towards that quantitative analysis, so that we can validate what we're actually designing when we're testing it. So a lot of marketing folks have such wonderful experience with that, and I think that's something that I'm constantly trying to learn more about from them.
Next question. So it sounds like some of you have kind of experience in both the physical or tangible product development and design side, and also in the software or digital space. So I'm curious, in like the overlapping of those processes, if you happen to have drawn some conclusions about, okay, this part of the process, this methodology happened to work really well in products, but failed miserably when we tried to apply it to software or any digital sort of work. So do you find any overlap between those, or are there massive differences where you're like, well, this person's going to touch this thing and use it like a blender sort of way, but you can't do that on a touch screen? So like, what sort of differences do you find there, and are there best practices that we can apply from one to the other, perhaps?
Well, I've worked on a number of, coming from an industrial design background, I've worked on a number of physical products and virtual products. And one of the things that's nice, without sounding like a generalist, you can call yourself a user experience designer, which sounds pretty good, and just means that if you see something that doesn't feel right, you can say, well, it could affect the experience of the product. And if you see something that doesn't look right, you can say, well, that might negatively affect the experience of the product. And so it's kind of this nice place to be, actually, depending on who your clients are, what space you're in. So we work primarily in the medical space, and those devices have an actual physical device component. They might go home with the user, they might be in a different clinical setting. They might also have screens on them, they're touch screens, or they're combination soft screen and controls, or what have you. But in general, what I think is difficult is the whole framework that they build around like agile and lean development. When you try to make that work between a physical device and a software device, it can get very tricky, and it can blow up in your face very, very quickly, because I don't think it's simply, the notions are correct in either case, which is that you want to iterate as much as possible. But the problem just comes down to logistics and cost. So you can really get yourself in a tight spot if you don't recognize how long it might take to construct something that's physical versus building something that's a UI prototype that you can sort of piece together, if you've got a good coder or someone who can put together a nice little prototype in one of those prototyping tools, over a weekend or over a couple of days and throw it in front of somebody. So those are the types of issues that you have to really keep in mind. But I think in general, the same principle applies. I mean, you can cover a lot of ground if you have a design for a physical interface and you're able to mock it up with, stuff you have around your office and just put it into someone's hands. But again, I think when you're dealing with a client, it can get trickier because you really have to be mindful of what you are committing them to with multiple iterations and where they are in their development, have they bought tooling, those sorts of things.
I started out my career in human factors and ergonomics. There is an issue of something might look great but not be comfortable. So one of the things I recommend to some of my colleagues is, take a basic human factors course. And the interesting thing you might find out is some of the things we apply to designing screen layouts, some of that in the traditional human factors came from laying out of buttons and controls and displays on hardware and things. So I would recommend, and we have things like many small devices. Are they comfortable? Do they fit your hand? Can you use them in the winter? Sort of being aware of those things can make you, sort of get you more in touch with the issues around that. So I think some traditional human factors is a good adjunct to UX and usability and some design courses.
So it sounds like it's kind of more so bridge the gap between the tangible, the physical products and the software or digital stuff
it makes
by learning about things that apply to both.
Well, I think the human factors, coming at it from that perspective, you ask different questions. Is it too heavy? Is it too light? What would it be like? We have wearable computing, so maybe this shirt of mine is a computer and it overheats in the back and I'm jumping up and down with, heat rash and burns in the back. So, but there are many more tangible objects in ubiquitous computing, and you have to understand battery life and how do you get power to millions of embedded devices in a way that they can work. And what about, complex networks and kind of degradation that's graceful? So, if we have cars that have embedded sensors and they drive themselves, well, what happens when that fails? So I'm a big advocate of some basic human factors. I have 3 or 4 good textbooks I would recommend. So
I have something else to add to that, is that also when you get a piece of hardware, it's sort of, you can't change it afterwards, it's already made. So let's say you have a box, it's already made, you can't change it. But if that box was software, you keep on making it. So I think that's where the process is radically different. So if you're making a website and you build it like a product and you ship it and you're like, all right, great, like I'm never touching it again, you're probably like wasting one of your most important powers as a designer of a digital product, because you can sort of swap in, you can test, you can run A/B test, you can do all sorts of things to keep on learning and keep on improving your product. And I would say that a product lives much farther past from when you design it. So once you finish designing it, I broke it again. Once you finish designing a website, you never really finish. You come back to it so that you keep on working on it, and you keep on learning from it. And it's more of a cyclical process where I'd say that you could keep on handing out versions of your software, but you can't sort of walk over to the person who has your box, take it, and say, here's the new one.
Unless it's an iPhone.
I think you are breaking the mic.
Sells major one.
I'll hold it.
Take that. It's making a strange noise. Okay.
This one works.
Oh, okay.
Until she uses it.
Any other comments or?
Oh, so just following up on what Chauncey was saying about, right now we're in this huge boom of wearable technology, and I think even just the maker space, the whole maker movement is really something that I'm super interested in personally, and it's allowing for this sort of rapid prototyping with hardware that I think is actually very interesting. I mean, it's important because when we start to think about global solutions, like when we're thinking about devices that might be in more rough terrain or in places where there's not, a Wi-Fi signal, you need to start rapidly, experimenting with the devices that you're going to be putting into some of these environments. So I think that's something that's a really exciting thing. I know that the MIT Media Lab has tons and tons of projects that really sort of look at those environmental issues when it comes to sensors and different devices.
Okay, next question.
This is loud. So for someone newly entering the field, given the broad range that the UX field covers, that's very evident. How would you advise someone to find their focus? And if it's easier, how did you find your focus within the field?
Okay, I'll start. I basically, by being thrown into a project is probably the best way. And I know I talk to a lot of people. I don't know, is this working? It is?
Yes. It is.
Yeah.
Okay, great. A lot of people who are in the field, we work with a lot of different companies, and a lot of people contribute different ways to different products, whether it's a website or a mobile app or whatever it may be. But if I were out there entering the field, I would probably, or trying to prove my capability, I would pick up any kind of project whatsoever. And the most important thing is, again, going back to that sketchbook, but it shows your thought process. And if I'm talking to somebody and I want to hire somebody or have somebody help me with a project, I don't care about the final, I do care about the final product, but I don't know what they actually contributed to that product unless I see their thought process and what they were thinking about and the iterations they went through. And so documenting something as you go through, I think, is really critical. And whether you just start something really small, a mobile app that even may not even come to be, or a website for a company, whatever it may be, but just taking your sketchbook and keeping all your iterations and all your thought processes through so that you can prove to somebody that you can actually think from, bring it from point A to point B, I think is really critical. In addition to a lot of other things, which I'm sure people will contribute here.
Yeah, so I like lots of things, but I guess, these microphones are weird. Okay.
Batteries.
Bad. Here.
Bad US.
So I guess one thing, there are, do you have a particular thing you value in life? So if you're interested in sustainability, I'm a foodie and a serious amateur chef, and that might be, I would look for something like that. So I guess I would think, what are some values that you might want to express in your work? So that would be a cool thing. I enjoy mentoring, so if you enjoy mentoring, maybe you would go into some tools that support that. So the others, there are so many books out there now. When I started the field, there were 3, and they were sort of tangential in the 70s, let's say, a long time ago, and things. But there's so many books around and different things. So there's both a domain area, and there's also sort of a particular, do you want to work on mobile devices, or does it, I'm pretty fascinated with ubiquitous computing, and I think that's the next generation where we're, things are all tied together in giant networks and things. So those are a couple things. I have a giant list of books I'd be happy to, send to you. So.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'm kind of hesitant.
It's okay.
Broken ones.
Okay. I turned
this
one
off.
All right. Oh, this works. So I would also add to that is that kind of company you work at and you choose to apply for is going to determine a lot of what you do. So if you work for a company that's much smaller, say a startup, you're going to be finding yourself doing more general things just because the team is smaller, and they'll be like, all right, why don't you do some programming and design and this and this. So I think it just depends on you and your personal choice of where do you see yourself fitting in your team. If you're really excited about learning a bunch of different things, going towards a smaller team may not be a bad idea. But if you were interested in saying focusing on something specific, it's really the job market is really good right now. You can really be selective in kind of where you choose to go and where you see yourself fitting. I think so. I'm pretty new to this field, but one of my driving forces behind the opportunities and the jobs I took was thinking about how much I would learn in the next job. So it's not always about the dollars or the kind of benefits you get, the monetary benefits you get from